Newsweek just reported Dr. Fauci backed the controversial Wuhan lab, the laboratory that created the coronavirus, with millions of U.S. dollars for risky coronavirus research. The question I have for you is why?
Wow. Yeah, I'm very aware of all this.
Wow.
That's not good.
Why?
So, oh man. Wow.
Jeez.
I'm going to just tell you right now, this is extremely bad.
Some shows don't need a celebrity narrator to introduce the show, but this show does. 2 men, 8 kids, co-created by 2 different women, 13 multi-million-dollar businesses. Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to the Thrive Time Show.
Now, 3, 2, 1, here we go!
Started from the bottom, now we here. Started from the bottom, and we'll show you how to get here. Started from the bottom, now we here. We started from the bottom, now we here. We started from the bottom, now we here.
Yes, 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 and yes! Thrive Nation, on today's show, we are going to be talking about facts. Now, Robert, when we start talking about facts, what's the problem with facts?
Well, what we've been seeing lately is that when we start discussing facts with people, before they even see the facts, they have already made up their minds about what they want to be true. I remember in college I studied theology, and I had this professor. He was awesome. He said, theology is really the practice of people deciding what they want to believe and then defending it, figuring out how to defend it. And so whenever you present someone with facts, and I've done a lot of this lately actually,
Yes.
and someone doesn't like it, typically they get very emotionally charged. They start name calling, start demeaning you, even if you maintain composure and a level head through the whole entire conversation.
So what we're going to do is we're going to share the facts, and I brought somebody on the show today who is a guy who, in my opinion, is a man of credibility. Doug Ward, welcome onto the Thrive Time Show. How are you, sir?
I am doing outstanding, guys. How are you?
Man, I'm excited to talk to you. For the listeners out there that aren't familiar with you there, sir, can you share with the folks, tell us about your career. What have you been doing before we picked up the phone and called you today?
You know, I started out in high school. I was from a military family. I started out in the Marine Corps. From the Marine Corps, I eventually transitioned through my service and retired out of the Navy. When I worked in the Navy, I was a communications specialist. So we could move around the different parts of the Navy working with them. So you could work in special operations. If you were selected, you had to go through a special screening to work with them. That was physical screening, psychological screening, that type of thing. So I was very fortunate to be able to work with DevGru and then a unit called Special Activity 2, which became Special Reconnaissance Team 2. And my last assignment, I ran a troop called Mission Support Troop. And under that, I had a special communications division that did non-standard communications, and that was stuff that wasn't typical to the military. And then we also did things like technical surveillance and those type of things that you would see maybe law enforcement, but we were trying to get intelligence on the enemy forces.
Did you say that you were in the Marines?
Yes, I started out in the Marines.
Now, I'm not sure that you want a mega point, but I'm going to give you a mega point. Anytime someone serves in the Marines, you get a mega point, because I understand that not just anybody can be in the Marines. Was it a tough, challenging, grueling training process to get ready for the Marines?
For myself, I went in at 105 pounds and 5'5".
Whoa.
When I graduated boot camp, I was 5'8" and I weighed 160.
Heck yeah.
Wow.
That's in 3 months.
America, baby.
So what percentage of, would you say that the Marines are one of the hardest divisions of the military to get into? Is that an objective thing we could say, Douglas? Is that fair to say?
Yeah, I would say it's probably out of the 4, just because of the discipline that's also involved too. Not just the physical training, but it's the discipline and being able to willfully follow orders.
Do they do background checks on you to make sure that you're not crazy?
Not so much when you're going in, but depending on the job that you're going to go into, that's where the background checks get really in-depth.
And how many years did you serve in the military?
I had almost right over 20 years active duty. Wow. And then I had about 5 years in the reserves because I had some broken time. I was actually out for a little bit for about 5 years. So it's probably around 24, 25.
So, Robert, can we give him a mega point and say that he actually
Maybe
is
couple
credible?
mega
Can we say he's
points.
credible?
Yeah.
Okay, mega point.
24 years of military service. That is just incredible. I appreciate you so much.
Okay, now we're going to have the
appreciate it.
fastest 15 minutes ever, and I'm going to try to passively aggressively book you on the show one more time because I just love talking to you. So we're going to do this here. So here we go.
I like listening to this guy.
Okay, so here we go. Our country was shut down. The coronavirus. We have all these different governors who are shutting down the country, and a lot of people are saying, "Who made the call? Who made the call?" So I've got audio I'm going to play for you, Douglas, of our Commander-in-Chief, President Donald J. Trump. This is what he said at a press conference. Let me play it for you real quick here.
4 weeks ago, we had the greatest economy in the history of the world, the greatest in the world, greatest in the history of the world. We had the most jobs ever in the history of the United States, almost 160 million jobs, right? And then one day, I get a call from Deborah, who's fantastic, and from Dr. Fauci. And she said, "We have a problem." I said, "What's the problem?" And they said, "We may have to close it up." I said, "Close what up?" They said, "Close up the country." I said, "What's that all about?" And
Now, okay, so you've heard that audio. We've all heard that audio. This is my first question for you, Douglas, you've served in the military for 24 years. Dr. Fauci, according to Newsweek now reports Dr. Fauci backed the controversial Wuhan lab with millions of U.S. dollars. Does that, in your mind, destroy Dr. Fauci's credibility in your mind, or should that make us wonder? When you heard that Dr. Fauci backed the Wuhan lab, was that alarming to you, sir?
It's extremely, wow. I wouldn't even say extremely. It's very damaging to his credibility.
Why?
Because the money that was put in that lab, the intelligence from what's coming out is saying it came from the lab. Now we have a situation where he was an advisor to the president, because everyone thinks the president will make the final decision. It's just like a military commander or someone in a company. The CEO makes decisions based upon what? Their advisors and the experts that are hired to bring in. They advised him to shut down the economy based off intelligence or what they were being told from a lab that they had also given money to. Now think about that. This is where critical thinking comes in. And a lot of people don't want to do that right now. We've got the media saying one thing, but if you actually do your own research and dig, you're going to find it. And that's where Americans are failing right now. We become a lazy society. Everybody wants, turn on the news and the research is there for you. That's not how it works. You have to have critical thinking. That's what made this country great.
Now, I'm going to read you an excerpt from the Newsweek article, and I'm putting a link to it on the show notes, and it's now being reported by many other media outlets, but I will read this to you. And when I read it, I literally went to my bathroom, no exaggeration, and vomited. It says this: many scientists have criticized gain-of-function research, which involves manipulating viruses in the lab to explore their potential for infecting humans because it creates a risk of starting a pandemic from an accidental release. Then I looked up the word gain-of-function, and it says research involves experimentation that aims or is expected to increase the transmissibility of pathogens, designed to increase. Sir, is there any good reason why we would want to increase the transmissibility of a virus?
In my experience and the things I've seen, that is going into biological warfare. That is something that was planned. That is not an accident. That is something that is planned. Dr. Rashid Buttar, I've watched some of his briefs. He was on London Real. The show got taken down. Why are people who should be given freedom of speech being taken down? The gain of function, and Dr. Rashid Buttar, and he was also a military doctor, has basically broke it down, and he's trying to get people to understand, why is this being done? This is not something that scientists are supposed to be doing. You understand it, but you do not enact it. we need to get our critical thinking, caps on and say, okay, who are we going to charge with the crime? You should not be doing this type of thing.
Now, if I were driving a bus in the military, and you correct me if I'm wrong, sir, say I was in the Marines, and I was texting and driving and ran over a child on the military base while texting and driving, and it was proven that I was texting and driving, and I ran over a child that was visiting their family on a military base, what would happen?
You're going up for a court-martial. Period. End of story. You are charged.
So if it malpractice, maybe it would be negligence. It'd be gross negligence. It would be. So if you're a doctor that funds gain of function research that creates a virus that kills people, how do you think that they might charge said person?
That's where things get sticky, because we have a situation where we have the World Health Organization, who's been taking a lot of money and is backing this research. Why do we have an organization that is trying to back research and gain of function? Gain of function is something that should not be done, because it's actually trying to cause what? A pandemic, because that's eventually what's going to happen. So that pandemic causes what? Depopulation. If you look at what Bill Gates is doing, what's Bill Gates doing? He has a global center for depopulation. You can look it up. The pictures of the front of his facility say the Global Center for Depopulation. But he builds vaccines to help depopulation. If you watch his TED Talk, he talked about depopulation. Oh, I'm building vaccines to help with the world's population.
Yep.
Now, the last time I checked up a vaccine, checked on what a vaccine is to actually help prevent disease.
Yes.
And depopulation. Now, you had all these people sitting there clapping like seals. I find a problem with that. It's like they were basically clapping because it was Bill Gates.
Right.
And they did not listen to what actually was said.
Correct. Now, if you look at this, point number 2 I want to share with the listeners. This is on the gatesfoundation.org. Gatesfoundation.org. I've put a link to it. Robert, you see the link? I'm putting a link to it.
Yeah.
I'm not.
Yeah.
I will read. It says, the World Health Organization, UNICEF, the National Institute of Allergy and Infectious Diseases, and the Bill and Melinda Gates Foundation have announced a collaboration to increase the coordination of the international vaccine community and to create a global vaccine action plan. And guess who's on the Leadership Council? Dr. Anthony Fauci. Interesting. Now the Gates Foundation is developing a surveillance system, which is on the Gates Foundation website. And then point 4 is now Bill Gates has filed a patent. Now, Douglas, would you like to know what Bill Gates' new patent does? Would you like to know about his newest product?
Go ahead and tell me. I'm ready.
It is listed as cryptocurrency system using body activity with the publication number W02020060606. Douglas, do you have any problem that the publication number is 060606? And do you have any problem with the product, the patent being called the cryptocurrency system using body activity data? What are your thoughts on that?
All right. So from my background, from what I did, and I did some pretty good stuff in my military time and with some other things. And I will tell you this. First off, 060606. If you have any type of biblical background or have any type of faith, that is very bad.
Why?
The Bible speaks out about the mark of the beast. And I don't think this is any coincidence. And anybody in their right mind would know this is not a coincidence. If we look at this whole situation that's happened with COVID-19, there are too many coincidences. How many times are you going to have a coincidence until it's mathematically impossible? And that's where we're at right now. Now, when you look at the cryptocurrency, if they were to mark everybody with a chip, if you've been on Twitter, there's a lot of people, all of a sudden I'm seeing people who they said, I will not take the vaccine, I will not take the chip. We were at a critical point where a lot of people are starting to get upset because they see what's coming down the pipe and they don't want to do it. The cryptocurrency, the way it's going to be based, looking at what I'm seeing here off the link.
Yep.
It ties into your bank account. It ties in to everything about you. And here's the other thing. What are they not telling you that's in there? Is it going to monitor your biometrics? Is it going to monitor if you have any type of illness? Is there something in your system to where they can monitor you? These are things that people don't understand. Now you go to the store, you want to buy something. In the military and law enforcement, I was in law enforcement for a little bit in California during the time when I was out. And one of the things you want to build on people, and this was usually done on criminals, or it was done against terrorist organizations or whoever, is building what they call a pattern of life. And to build that pattern of life, you're watching them through surveillance. And the surveillance was usually done through cameras, maybe audio devices, things of that nature. Or if you were lucky enough and you had the warrants, if it was within the United States or wherever you're at in a combat zone, you really don't need warrants. You just need approval from the chain of command, is having access to their computer systems or their phones, where you're trying to maybe possibly track them, understand where they're at, monitor their communications. Where we're going with this with American society and the global population is we're basically implementing the very things we would do against an enemy to our very own people.
Now, I want the listeners to know of the origin of 666. If you look at the translation where you go from the Greek into Hebrew, the translation for Nero, 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 is 666. Now, people don't understand who Nero was. I want to explain who Nero was. We have, back in the time of Rome, you had Christians that, Robert, you studied the Bible a little bit here.
This was a bad dude.
And what would happen is if you didn't burn incense and swear allegiance to Nero, then he would put you to death. But he gave you options. He was a nice guy, flexible guy. He said, if you don't put your kids, you get to put your kid into the Colosseum and watch him be eaten by a lion, or you get to burn alive. What do you want to do? Watch your kid get eaten by a lion or be burnt alive? And that was what was called a Roman candle, where they would tie your body up to a post and they would burn you alive. And this is what happened. And so if you read this controversial book known as the Bible, which so many people don't, so there's no biblical knowledge right now. I mean, Douglas, people aren't aware of Revelation chapter 13, verse 16 through 17, that reads, "It is also forced on people, great and small, rich and poor, free and slave, to receive a mark on their right hands or on their foreheads, so that they could not buy or sell unless they had the mark, which is the name of the beast, or the name of its name, or a number of its name." So he's telling you in the Bible about what happened under Nero.
Right. 100%.
So right now, if you want to be a hero and you want to step up, I think, Douglas, a lot of our listeners want to say, what do I need to do? Like, a lot of our listeners are spooked out of their mind. Some right now are going, Clay, I'm going to look at your links, and if every link that you put up isn't 100% correct, I'm done with you. Because what you're saying is crazy. So people right now, one by one, thousands of people are checking out the links right now, Douglas. What can they do? What should they do? What is an action step that they should do?
One of the things I would say is your voice has got to be heard. Now, here's the caveat to that. If you look at social media, YouTube, and a lot of the research people try to do on YouTube, they try to use that because it's really quick and easy. And you can actually, people like to watch videos, for example. A lot of the videos, a lot of materials getting pulled down. And a lot of users on YouTube, or I should say the people that are publishing information, like articles that I'm looking at right here, these are all articles I've already seen.
Right.
And they're verified. Now, people that are reporting on them are actually moving to like BitChute, because YouTube is actually censoring if anything is against the narrative that is going on right now in the mainstream media. And when I say the mainstream media, it's basically all the talking heads that are on right now. People need to let their voice be heard. You need, first off, start doing your research. Start figuring out, how do we get and talk to our representatives? Let your voice be heard. The other thing is, if you were to get a knock on the door right now, say cops show up at your house, and I've watched quite a few interviews on this lately, and it's very disturbing where police come up and say, hey, I just we just got word that your kid was over playing with the neighbor's kid across the street. And people are saying, they're basically, you're supposed to stay in some of these states, they're so locked down that you can't even leave your house unless you have a reason to go to the grocery store. We're in a situation right now where people have got to get their voice out there. You have to take a stand for yourself and for your country. A lot of people are not used to doing that. They talk a good game. Guess what? Now's the time to step up. Because if you don't, you won't have freedom. We were talking about that pattern of life with the cryptocurrency.
Yep.
Let me tell you something. You want to see people climbing up your rear end? It's when they start building that pattern of life. They know, based off the digital receipt at the store, because you had to use like a chip in your arm or wherever it would be, for example, it basically scans. They know every bit of food and drink that you ever bring into your house, every type of product you buy. Think about that. That's a scary thought. We're basically coming up to that situation. You have a billionaire who never completed Harvard, started a company. A lot of people don't understand. Bill Gates' father was also what? He also was a person that ran Planned Parenthood for a certain period of time, was very good friends, has pictures taken with the Rockefellers, the Rothschilds, Anthony Fauci. Now, all these pictures are out there, all these relationships between these people. And now they're coming out with a chip and a cryptocurrency. They want everything tied to a cryptocurrency. Why do we need cryptocurrency? And if we were to go down the rabbit hole of our actual currency, it's actually fiat currency. Why aren't we based off of gold standard or a standard based off of metals like we used to be?
And real quick, so for the folks out there that don't know, fiat means by decree. So we have a currency that's backed by nothing but hope, and maybe a little bit change, hope and change, and as opposed to a currency backed by gold is what you're referencing. Am I correct, sir?
Correct. Very correct.
So what I want to do is I want the listeners out there, I'm going to give you three action items here. Action item number one. Robert, you've seen this. We have a whole team. We've been emailing this to all the pastors across America that have churches of more than 1,000 people.
Right.
And Douglas, would it be shocking for you to know that every single pastor I've sent this to didn't know?
That's actually shocking. I'm surprised they're not researching this. But you have to understand some of the changes I've seen within religion within the United States is there's a lot of, like I'm in a course right now in a university.
Yep.
And it's a religion course. And the Pope had come out with Nostra Aetate. And it was basically interact with all the other religions. Now, it's great to do that. It's great to have that brotherhood and have respect for the other religions. But we've also gotten to a point where a lot of the religions are kind of straying and doing what they want to do instead of focusing on things such as the 10 Commandments and treat people with kindness. They've kind of bent more for the social media. Yeah. And I don't think they're really sticking, like they're afraid to take a stand on something and say, hey, there's certain things that you got, the rest of the world is doing, or certain people like celebrities that are so out of line with how children should be raised and the morals we should have, that we've gone down a really dark road. And I don't think sometimes they actually even see it happening because they don't want to lose parishioners or, the people that are coming in, bringing money into the church. So I think we need to take a look at that also.
So what I've done is point one, I've put the facts for you on today's show. And I encourage everybody, share this with your pastor if you have one. If you don't have a pastor, I encourage you to share it with a pastor. Everybody, do it. 2, share this with your mayor. And share this with your governor. And share this with your elected official. And if you say, I don't even know who they are, I don't even know. Well, then you got to figure it out. But the worst thing we could possibly do is for people, good people, to sit back and do nothing. And Douglas, I'm going to give the mic to you for the final comment on today's show. But before I give you the mic to say what you'd like to say to wrap up the show, what is your website where people can learn more about you and the things you do?
Yeah, my website is anchorstrategiesllc.com, and it's based on leadership.
Yep.
And it's to help encourage leadership within companies, on helping build bulletproof teams, get rid of workplace toxicity, and move forward to increase your revenue, because basically if you have great leadership, that's how your revenue is going to come in. And that's how you're going to be productive. And that's what's going to take you into the next 10, 20 years, is understanding your leadership and how to bring people forward with you.
And that's anchorstrategiesllc.com. That's anchorstrategiesllc.com. Sir, I'll give you the mic. You've served this great country. I thank you for your service. What would you like to say to our 500,000 listeners?
First off, I would like to say thank you for thanking me for my service, and your listeners out there. I'd like to say it was worth it to serve all of you. And I think people need to understand you have to start taking a stand for yourself now. And if you don't, you're trying to talk to your neighbors, you're trying to talk to some people, and they think you're, kind of a whack job. There's a lot of that going on. These are people whose head is in the sand, and they cannot believe what's going on in front of them because they're so used to believing what is put in front of them and not doing their own research. You've got to do that. If you see something that is so the word I'm looking for here is
egregious.
Egregious. There you go. If you find yourself, and a lot of people are seeing that, but they're afraid to stand up and question it. And I think we have to get back to understanding, ask questions.
Yep. Douglas, I appreciate you for your serving our country. I appreciate you for taking a bold stance, for being on the show. I appreciate you for being willing to talk with me and with our audience about a subject when so many people are afraid to do so. And I hope you have a blessed day. I hope you're safe, not because of the virus. I'm not saying I hope you stay safe from the virus. I'm saying I hope you stay safe from heart disease, because that's more likely to get you.
Cancer.
I hope you stay safe from cancer. I hope you stay safe from automobile accidents. I hope you stay safe from a lot of things. But the thing I'm the least fearful about currently is the coronavirus, because it was just released today, and I put a link to it on the show notes, that when they count the coronaviruses every day, they add up pneumonia, influenza, and COVID in one column and call it the corona. So be safe, but don't worry about the coronavirus.
Hey, I appreciate that, and you guys have a great one. Obviously, have a blessed day, and I appreciate it, gentlemen.
Now, folks, there is a show on YouTube called the Valuetainment Show. That's the name of the channel, Valuetainment. And the host of that show recently interviewed Dr. Judy Mikovits. Again, it's Dr. Judy Mikovits. And that last name is spelled Mikovits. Now, the Valuetainment channel has over 2.2 million subscribers. And throughout the life of the channel, they've interviewed Mark Cuban and huge names that you would know. So this is coming from a source of credibility. And I want you to just to take notes for a moment and listen to Dr. Judy Mikovits expose Dr. Anthony Fauci by simply sharing the truth.
My guest today is Dr. Judy Mikovits. Her background, just so you know, in just over 20 years, she went from entry-level lab technician to the director of the Lab of Antiviral Drug Mechanisms at the National Cancer Institute, where she discovered some unique info about retroviruses in vaccine. She has 2 books out. One of them came out in 2017 called The Plague. When Scientists Interpret Search for the Truth About Human Retroviruses and Chronic Fatigue Syndrome, Autism, and Other Diseases. Right now, it's ranked #1 on Amazon under forensic medicine. And her second book that just came out, I believe April 14th of 2020, I think 10 days ago, Plague for Corruption, Restoring Faith and the Promise of Science. Her first press sold literally in a few hours. It's number one rank right now on Kindle, Amazon on AIDS, #1 book on AIDS, and #1 Kindle book for virology. And that's by Simon & Schuster. And the reason why I say by Simon & Schuster is because I am right now publishing a book through Simon & Schuster. When you write a book through Simon & Schuster, there comes a phase where their attorneys read everything you write, and then they ask you saying, do you have proof of this? Do you have proof of that? Do you have proof of this? Because Simon & Schuster has to protect what you're writing about, because many times when you write things, there are lawsuits. So if somebody self-publishes a book, it's a different story versus you going to a company like Simon & Schuster that publishes a book. I say that for the viewers to know the credibility of my guest today. She was awarded Graduate Student of the Year in 1991. She cooperated with the FBI during an investigation of Dr. Anthony Fauci, which we'll get to that. She was a fugitive on the run, hiding on a boat for 4 days. Her story sounds more like a movie, but it's an actual real-life story. Having said that, Dr. Judy Mikovits, thanks for being a guest on Valuetainment today. Deborah Birx.
Scarf lady. Okay. She a buffoon. She's committed crimes in the 80s in HIV against the military, and they destroyed families. She's right there doing the same thing. She knows that there's no such thing as asymptomatic carriers. Oh, so we'll let you go. We'll do a release, and we'll let everybody out of their house. And then, oh, but don't get too far, because as soon as the summer's over, it's coming back. No, if you have antibodies, you're immune. Stop this. Why are you redefining immunology? Because you can, and it covers up your crime. So this just is more of the same. She should have been convicted a long time ago, along with Robert Redfield of the CDC. They perpetrated these frauds all the way against in HIV/AIDS in the 80s and 90s.
How about Tedros, the director of CDC?
Don't know him at all. No comment.
President Trump.
Think he's trying the best he can to honor the Constitution and honor his promises to the people. And I just don't think there's any way when everybody's lying to you at the top of what real healthcare is. He's not a scientist. He shouldn't be expected. He should be able to trust his leaders.
Bill Gates.
He knows nothing about medicine. He doesn't have a medical degree. $1 billion doesn't. Nobody elected him anything. $1 billion doesn't allow him to become a doctor and decide who gets what vaccines and who can't leave their home, just because he has all the money.
Dr. Anthony Fauci.
Again, treason is what he should be charged with, and he should go right now. As far as and all of the money. The last slide of that Truth About Cancer talk was all of these things be closed, give the people the money you stole, reorganize all of HHS, Health and Human Services, and start over. We'll rebalance the budget quickly, and the victims of these crimes will get restored, and we can use these health measures that all those brilliant people at the NIH have done for 40 years to bring about a new health for our country like we've never seen before.
Many of you out there from coast to coast have heard of this controversial document known as the Constitution. Many of you even have the Constitution or parts of the Constitution tattooed on your arms or legs, or you might have an American flag. Perhaps you've had a civics course. But if you've opened up that controversial document known as the U.S. Constitution, you might have read the First Amendment. And the First Amendment reads like this. It says, Congress shall make no law respecting an establishment of religion or prohibiting the free exercise thereof, or abridging the freedom of speech or of the press, or of the right of the people to peaceably assemble and to petition the government for a redress of grievances. Let me repeat this again. Congress shall make no law respecting an establishment of religion or prohibiting the free exercise thereof, or abridging the freedom of speech or of the press, or the right of the people to peaceably assemble, except for now. And many of you are living in California. Some of you are living in New York. Many of you are in Illinois, where you are being told that you cannot peaceably assemble because government knows best. And so on today's show, we are interviewing an entrepreneur who I want everybody out there to get to know. I want you to visit this guy's website, learn more about him. Sir, welcome on to the Thrive Time Show. How are you?
I have a big heart today, sir. Thank you for having me.
Yeah. Well, can you spell your name and tell the listeners the name of your business, just so that everybody can Google you right now?
My name is Matthew Myers, MATTHEWMYERS. I actually go by Fat Jax. That's my nickname. Jax is what people call me. And my establishment is Apex Tattoo Factory out of Apex, North Carolina. Okay.
And for the listeners out there that aren't aware of this, I don't have tattoos. I am not against your right to have a tattoo or your right to not have a tattoo. I'm not a pro-tattoo guy or an anti-tattoo guy. But Matthew, how long have you been a tattoo artist?
In excess of 25 years.
25 years. And how did you start the company?
I started by working 2 jobs. I was actually an industrial dye technician for quite a few years. I'd work 8 hours there, go home and change, and then go and operate my business in the afternoon hours, as most tattoo shops hold later hours than regular small businesses.
And
But yeah,
you worked 2 jobs to start the company. You worked at one job and then took the money to start the tattoo place. You had 2 jobs simultaneously, correct?
yes, sir.
And I understand that you've been running your business, doing fine. And then what day did you find out you're not supposed to go to work anymore?
Don't quote me on this. We were ordered to close before the stay-at-home order was issued. We were closed first, but I believe it was March 14th was our last day.
And did you apply for the Paycheck Protection Program funding of it that was made, quote unquote, available for every business owner?
Yeah, I mean, I applied so many times. I thought I was going to have to go beg on my knees somewhere in a state capitol. It was terrible. Every time they would ask for a different document that I didn't have, because they also cut us off in peak season. People don't often realize that tattoo shops have a season where we make a considerable amount of more money than the rest of the year, and that's when people are getting their tax returns back.
And what city are you in, sir?
Apex, North Carolina.
So when you're in Apex, North Carolina, you are a tattoo artist. This is how you feed. Do you have any family, sir? Do you have any family, wife and kids or anything?
Yeah, I have a wife and 3 daughters.
And how many days were you closed before you thought, I cannot believe we're still closed?
7 weeks. It's been 7 weeks so far.
So at a certain point, when did you make the decision to open up in spite of the local restrictions?
Well, this month, it was when I realized that this was the last month I'd be able to pay all my bills. And that there were multiple things, but as a business owner, and I know small business owners will understand this, it's not just a small business, it's like a baby. You don't want to leave it, you don't want to go on vacation without it, because it always just seems like that's when something's going to go wrong. And you have to work so hard just to get to a point where you feel comfortable enough and you're actually saving money and you've paid back all those loans that you've taken, and feel like, hey, I believe that what I've done can make it, and feel halfway comfortable about it. So when we got off, we immediately, they said 2.4 million people were going to die. Everybody closed their doors, and I believe with all my heart, all of them did it out of care for the 2.4 million people that they said were going to die. But then I couldn't get the assistance that they said, hey, we've got a plan. We're going to shut this down. We're going to give you money, and it's going to be quick. And so we were depending on that. Well, the money didn't come, obviously. And so the only resource I have left is my savings. And it just started going down. And that's like a time bomb to a small business. I can't speak for everybody. I can only speak for myself. I came from poverty. Like 9/10 of my life, I was poor. I received money back, like subsidies and stuff like that when I filed my taxes. And now, finally a productive paying taxman.
Yeah.
And so
now, sir,
it was the time.
Go for it.
Sorry, go ahead.
No, I didn't mean to cut you off. I had the line cut out just for a second. Continue.
Sorry?
The line cut out just for a second. You can go ahead and keep sharing. I didn't mean to cut you off.
Oh yeah, I was just going to finish that. When your savings starts going down, that anxiety of just going back to that state in life really wears on you. So my heart was getting real heavy over that.
And are you in front of a computer?
I have iPad accessible.
Okay. If you get a chance to go to thrivetimeshow.com/coronavirus, what I would like to do is I would like to educate all the listeners while also going over a few facts with you, because I think maybe you probably weren't told these things, because you're an expert of tattoos, right? You're an expert of business. You're an expert of tattoos, right? I mean, this is what you know. That's your superset, right? I mean, you're not an expert of infectious disease, correct?
I don't think anybody's an expert in anything they do, but I feel like after 25 years, if I'm still doing it wrong, I wouldn't be here.
Okay. Now, when you pull up that page, let me know. It's thrivetimeshow.com/coronavirus. And on this page, you mentioned that there was 2.2 million Americans were predicted to die from the coronavirus. Where did you first hear that from?
On the news.
Okay. And do you know who originally made that claim?
I think it was the CDC.
See, this is interesting, and I want you to see this when you go to thrivetimeshow.com and you click on the coronavirus button. A lot of listeners don't know this. Some who listen to the show every day know this. The initial report, the initial model, was created by the Abdul Latif Jameel Institute for Disease and Emergency Analytics. Did you know that?
No, I did not.
I have never met a person that knows that. Now, did you know that the guy who made the model, his name is Neil Ferguson? Have you ever heard his name, Neil Ferguson?
No.
I'm going to play for you Neil Ferguson. This is what his recommendation is for America, and I'd like to get your take on his plan, okay? This is Neil Ferguson.
Sure. Could you do me one favor, though, and give me that website again?
Yeah, it's thrivetimeshow.com. Thrivetimeshow.com.
That's what I did.
Like a thriving plant. And then you click there, and then when you go there at the top left, you'll see a button that says coronavirus, and just click that, and then you'll be able to see what I'm talking about. Now, this is audio of Neil Ferguson. And by the way, nobody that I've interviewed on this show who's been shut down has any idea. I have not had a single person who I've interviewed on this show who knew that Neil Ferguson wrote the report. One. Isn't that crazy that we shut down our country based upon a report that nobody knows who wrote it?
Yeah, that's wild.
Now, the guy who wrote it, his name is Neil Ferguson, and he works for the Abdul Latif Jameel Institute for Disease and Emergency Analytics. Is that weird to you that we shut our country down based upon the report created by the Abdul Latif Jameel Institute for Disease and Emergency Analytics?
I mean, yes, it's weird, but I'm my father's son, so I don't trust a politician farther than I could throw him.
Okay, all right. I'm going to play audio here. This is Neil Ferguson's pro tips for you. Okay, this is Neil Ferguson's pro tips. Here we go.
Okay.
So I think kind of fundamental decisions have to be made by countries as to whether they're going to follow what WHO is recommending and what the Chinese did, namely attempt to suppress all transmission, or alternatively try to mitigate, in some sense control an epidemic, but short of completely stopping spread. And there's an important distinction, because in the former case, effectively that's a strategy which, I mean, in theory, if it works, could largely prevent deaths from this infection, but would really have to be kept in place for 12 to 18 months. And
did you just hear that?
Yeah.
He wants
12 to 18 months.
Yeah, his plan is to shut our country down for 12 to 18 months. And I want you to know this. The organization that pays him is called the Abdul Latif Jameel Institute. They are ran by the Saudi Arabians that we are currently having a price war with. Just so you know. A little fun factoid. And I don't think anybody knows that. Now, that's a little mega point. We got to make a point. We're educating people out there. No one knows that. Now, this is another pop quiz. How many deaths does Deborah Birx, the head of our coronavirus task force, how many people does she say we're projected to die now? How many people does she project that should be dying from the coronavirus now? Because initially Neil Ferguson said 2.2 million. How many is she saying now?
Honestly, I stopped watching.
Okay. You and everybody else.
It's hard.
You and everybody else. I'm gonna play this for you, and I want you to hear this, okay? Here we go. Check this out. It'll blow your mind.
I'm sure many of you saw the recent report out of the UK.
She's referring to Neil Ferguson's report.
About them adjusting completely their needs. This is really quite important. If you remember, that was the report that said there would be 500,000 deaths in the UK and 2.2 million deaths in the United States. They've adjusted that number in the UK to 20,000. So 500,000 to 20,000. We're
Now, you're a business owner. You do math. If you take 500,000, that's how many people were supposed to die. You heard her say that, right? She said there's 500,000 people that should die.
Yeah.
And now she's adjusted that to 20,000, which means that Neil Ferguson's predictions were off by 25 times. So it means that we now have 88,000 people predicted to die in our country. 88,000. Did you know that?
No, I didn't. And I'm looking at your page. That's the only reason I know. No.
I don't know anybody who knows this. It blows my mind. Now, who told the country that we needed to shut down? Your chance to win a lifetime supply of high fives next time I see you. Who said we had to shut the country down? Who was it?
Donald Trump?
No. Oh, see, this is good stuff. Let me listen. It was Dr. Fauci. Have you seen Dr. Fauci?
Oh, the short guy, yeah.
Okay, so listen to this real quick. This is Dr. Fauci. Here, let me hit play. This is Trump talking about Fauci.
4 weeks ago, we had the greatest economy in the history of the world, the greatest in the world, greatest in the history of the world. We had the most jobs ever in the history of the United States, almost 160 million jobs, right? And then one day, I get a call from Deborah, who's fantastic, and from Dr. Fauci. And she said, we have a problem. I said, what's the problem? And they said, we may have to close it up. I said, close what up? They said, close up the country.
You hear that? So Fauci says we should shut the country down. Did you hear that?
Yeah. Yes, sir.
Now I'm going to blow your mind for a second. And if do you have Google pulled up?
I have your show pulled up. Do you need me to?
Yeah. Can you Google something for me?
Yeah, absolutely.
I want you to type in the following search and find the article for me. Type in Dr. Fauci, so Dr. period, Fauci, F-A-U-C-I, so Dr. Fauci, backed controversial Wuhan lab, and hit enter. Do you ever read Newsweek?
Sir, I try and stay away from the media.
Oh, yeah.
Especially after everything that's happened and how they're twisting my story.
Well, I'm going to encourage you here because this right here, my friend, is going to be, I'm telling you, this is encouragement. You're going to feel good about this soon. Okay? So,
yes, sir.
Quick pop quiz. Let's make sure we're on the same page. Neil Ferguson wrote that report you talked about, okay? Because if you don't know the history, then the future's a mystery. It can be scary. You know what I'm saying? So Neil Ferguson wrote that report. You got it?
Yeah.
And then Deborah Birx said, we're wrong. Now we're going to have about 88,000 deaths. But then Fauci said we need to shut it down, right? Did you find that article in Newsweek, Dr. Fauci backed? Do you see that?
Yeah, from the New York Post.
New York Post or the Newsweek. Newsweek is the one that I would recommend that we would look at because Newsweek is more liberal, and I am a libertarian, so I don't want to quote something that plays to my biases, if that makes sense.
Okay, let me see if I can find it.
Oh, yeah.
So the only one that's popping up is the New York Times one when I look down.
Okay. And you typed in the search bar, Fauci. Type in Fauci Newsweek. You'll find it. F-A-U-C-I and then Newsweek.
Okay.
And we'll find it. And if you're listening out there right now, I encourage you to find it too, because when you find it, it's going to sear this idea in your cranium and it's going to blow your minds. Okay.
Okay, I got it right in front of me.
Now, I would like for you to read, if you can, the headline to me. Do you see the headline there in the Newsweek article?
Headline?
Yeah.
Dr. Fauci backed controversial Wuhan lab with millions of U.S. dollars for risky coronavirus research.
Yeah. Now scroll down there, and I'm going to read these words to you, and I'd like to get your take on them, okay? It says, Dr. Anthony Fauci is an advisor to President Donald Trump and something of an American folk hero for his steady, calm leadership during the pandemic crisis. At least one poll shows that Americans now trust Fauci more than Trump on the coronavirus pandemic, and few scientists are betrayed on TV by Brad Pitt. But last year, the National Institute for Allergy and Infectious Diseases, that's by the organization led by Dr. Fauci, funded scientists at the Wuhan Institute of Virology and the other institutions for work on the gain-of-function research on bat coronaviruses. In 2019, with the backing of the National Institutes of Health, committed $3.7 million over 6 years for research that included some gain-of-function work The program followed another $3.7 million 5-year project for collecting and studying bat coronaviruses, which ended in 2019, bringing the total to $7.4 million. Many scientists have criticized gain-of-function research, which involves manipulating viruses in the lab to explore their potential for infecting humans, because it creates a risk of starting a pandemic from accidental release. The virus now causing a global pandemic is believed to have originated in the bats. The U.S. intelligence, after originally asserting that the coronavirus had occurred naturally, conceded last month that the pandemic may have been generated in a leak from the Wuhan lab. So, think about this. The guy who told you that you have to stay home created the virus. Yes. And I'm telling you this because, one, this virus is significantly less dangerous than you've been told it is. But maybe you don't agree with me. And so if you'll go to that Thrive Time Show page that we went to earlier and just check that out, I have found that the vast majority of people still think that 2.4 million people can die. And would it also blow your mind? I'll make sure I send you a link to this as soon as we get off. Would it blow your mind to know that they're tabulating, the Center for Disease Control is counting flu, coronavirus, and pneumonia all together as one total? Would that blow your mind?
At this point, no.
So
you blew my mind in the first couple of minutes there.
Yeah. And I mean, it is absolutely craziness. And I will put all the links here for you. Would it rock your mind to know that Dr. Fauci and Bill Gates, if you go to the Gates Foundation website, that Gates and Fauci have been working on a vaccine for the virus that they created together? And the only solution for the virus that they made is their own vaccine?
No, that doesn't surprise me at all after some of the posts I've seen about Bill Gates and this saying that they were developing a cure, I guess you could call it.
Yeah. So, and the cure, let me read to you the cure, by the way. This is a patent. If you, I'll put a link to it so you can find it as well. The patent.
I've actually already looked that up.
You have. The patent number W02.
I was prepared for one thing you were going to talk about.
The cryptocurrency system using body activity. Are you a little bit alarmed by that? When you found that, did it blow your mind?
Well, what caused me to look it up is that one of the sterilization fluids that we wiped down everything with already had human coronavirus as one of the things that it killed.
Yes.
And so that's what caused me to look up, like, how is this on this bottle? And this is the first time I'm hearing it on the news.
Yep. So I wanted you to know that as the data becomes more commonly known, that remember, Dr. Fauci's the one telling you need to stay home. And it's the governors who shut you down. President Trump never shut you down. It's the governors who made that decision. But as the government as more and more people discover that this virus is less dangerous or as dangerous as the common flu. I mean, you wouldn't shut down your shop to hide from the common flu, would you?
Oh, no, I wouldn't have shut down my shop for the coronavirus.
Yeah, exactly. And so how long did you have to spend in jail?
Really, I just went right through. They're releasing prisoners right now, so they weren't going to hold me, the guy that was just operating his business lawfully, for very long.
Did you get a big fine?
I got a huge fine.
How big of a fine?
And of course, it was $2,000.
Okay.
And the media says it was a Class 2 misdemeanor. It was actually a Class 1 misdemeanor. Got
it. Well, you know what? You're a great guy. You're a diligent man, from what I can tell. And our show is listened to. A lot of people who actually work in elected office. A lot of elected officials listen to this show. And I've talked to them, and I have found that almost all of them, this is going to blow your mind, every elected official that I've talked to had no idea that Dr. Fauci backed the laboratory that created the virus. Did you know that before today's show? Did you know that?
No, sir.
Do you think anybody knows that?
I don't.
Think about that for a second. Everybody keeps talking about, I mean, you've probably heard people say, oh, it could kill 2.2 million. Did you have any idea that it's now on pace to kill 88,000, not 2.2 million? Have you ever heard that number?
No.
And when you were on the coronavirus page and you saw Dr. Deborah say it, doesn't that sort of bring, clarity to it when you see it out of their mouth and not out of my mouth?
Oh, yeah, absolutely.
So what I would encourage anybody out there today, if you're hearing this for the first time and it's blowing your mind, I mean, if your head's going to explode, if you find yourself going, oh, Billy, please understand that the truth is going to set us free. It's the truth. And Matthew, I would like for you to be able to share. I want you to share your truth with the listeners. You got the mic, got about 500,000 listeners that listen to this show. What do you want to say to all of them?
That tyranny reigns when good men stand and do nothing. My father raised me. My father was a veteran of the Army for 23 years.
Amen.
And a lot of people are giving me a big heart and calling me a hero, but all I've risked the other day was my freedom, and all of our vets out there risked more than their freedom.
Amen.
And what I did in memory of them for the people that are suffering.
I don't know that we've had a more profound statement said on this show or for a long time. And we've interviewed, the founder of Netflix and the founder of Square, but you just said tyranny rings when good men stand and do nothing. Is that something your dad used to tell you?
Well, my dad would always tell me that which is forgotten is destined to repeat.
That which is forgotten is what?
Destined to repeat.
Okay, while we're on the subject, let's do this. Have you ever studied Hitler?
I don't think you have to study too hard.
Well, little Adolf Hitler lesson out there for all the listeners out there that don't spend a whole lot of time studying Adolf. It's probably not a good idea to spend a whole lot of time studying a lot about Adolf Hitler, But Adolf Hitler has a notable quotable I'd like to read to you, Matthew, and maybe you can tell me what it means to you. I'm quoting Adolf Hitler, as I try not to ever do on this show. He says, "If you tell a big enough lie and tell it frequently enough, it will be believed." What do you think about that quote?
Oh, I believe it 100%.
Hitler convinced Jewish people, he convinced German people to put Jewish people in railroad cars and cart them off to their death because he spread a rumor that they might be able to spread a virus and that they were stealing your money and they were putting you at risk. Does that sound familiar?
Yep. Oh, yeah. No, I know all about it.
So I appreciate you having the courage to hop on this show, man. I really do. And what I'd like for you to do, I've got a little homework for you. And if you don't want to do it, it's fine. If you can find anybody in your phone that is a business owner and have them kind of introduce us via text. Call them first and see if they want to be on the show. But anybody that you know who's been shut down, I would love to interview all of your friends on this show.
Awesome. I'm actually on my phone right now, so that'd probably be a little hard to do.
Yeah, when you get off just later throughout the week, whatever, and I'll text you my number here in just a minute.
Awesome.
That sound good?
Yes, sir.
Brother, I appreciate you being on the show. What's your web address one more time?
It's apextattoofactory.com.
One more time, just in case somebody was trying to write it down.
apextattoofactory.com. And I would really appreciate people going to Apex Tattoo Factory Facebook page because that's where all the bullies are right now for me. And they've destroyed my business reputation, which I had no reservations about because I was going to lose it anyway. So,
brother, I appreciate you. I really do appreciate you. It's for standing up for this. This is awesome.
Thank you, sir.
And now, without any further ado, 3, 2, 1, boom. Little bonus pro tip here for everybody out there. Share this show with as many people as possible so that we can get that idiot, Dr. Fauci, out of the White House. Let's get Dr. Fauci away from you and me. Let's get Dr. Deborah Birx out of here. Share this show with 10 people that you know. Do it now. Go through your contacts and share this show with 10 people that you know. Let's get Dr. Deborah Birx and Dr. Fauci out of here so we can go back to running our great country and being free as we once were.